guys. It's not Friday, it's Saturday. But I missed my chat yesterday and 2 weeks ago. I was feeling like, even though I had kind of a baller couple weeks, that wasn't anything that would be too exciting, or maybe that I just couldn't like get the energy to be as excited as I normally am the last 2 Fridays, so I just didn't upload anything. So it is Saturday morning, and I don't know if you can tell, I've got my coffee and some cookies, which was me baking late last night without with half the ingredients that you need to bake cookies. I had gone and gotten chocolate chips, some like dark chocolate vegan ones, and I didn't realize that I didn't have anything else that you need, including sugar or soy milk or almond milk or something. So I woke up this morning and I tasted it. I'm like, these are so floury. These are gross. And so I added some more almond extract and some spices and then baked them. I was just eating it raw last night as I was watching the Great British Cook-Off. The Great British Cook-Off. Bake Off, which is so great. I love how everybody's like so friendly and helping each other out, and it's wonderful. So that was my Friday night. That was actually my past 2 Friday nights, I think. No, maybe 2 weeks ago, I just sat and like listened to spoken word poetry, which is my fave, with the kitty, who is on my lap now. It's in the 70s here, which means she's cold. She hangs out with me when it's cold. If it's hot out, she wants nothing to do with me. Such a cat. Yeah, so I guess rewind a couple weeks ago, I was in Puerto Rico, as you saw in my last chat with Andi video, and that was awesome. I freaking love Puerto Rico. It wasn't like top of my list of places to go to. I think maybe because it's in the U.S. and I was like, it's just in the U.S. I can go anytime. But now I'm thinking it should have been top of my list. It has so in the world there are 5 bioluminescent bays. And 3 of them are in Puerto Rico. I meant to look up where the other 2 are, because I keep using that stat and I don't know where the other 2 are. But yeah, so 3 of them are there. I couldn't figure out, the whole time I was there, I was like trying to figure out which one do I want to go to. And I ended up going to the one on Vieques. They didn't pronounce it how I would have expected them to pronounce it in Spanish, like Vieques. They said VKs is what I was expecting. Anyway, so you take a ferry, which is only like $2 to get on the ferry. You take a ferry out to this island, VKs, and then they've got Mosquito Bay there, which some of the locals had told me that like just go to the one near San Juan because it's not as trafficked with tourists. And so, but I think after Hurricane Maria came through, none of them are like that trafficked, and they're missing a lot of the mangroves on part of the bay. Which that's what forms these bioluminescent bays. So there's like this bioluminescent bacteria that's everywhere, and it concentrates only in these 3 areas, so that you can like tell they're there because you can actually see them lighting up the bay. And they concentrate there because of the way the mangroves are around the bay. I think that's how it is. And so when Hurricane Maria came through and devastated a lot of those mangroves, they're worried that they're going to lose the bioluminescent bays. And they all seem to be there still. And the tour guides are saying they're just as bright as before. I have no idea. I actually knew about the bioluminescent bays because there's a book by Dan Brown where they find, they're like in Antarctica, they're somewhere, and there's like glowing stuff in the water, and he like brings up that there's this thing that is bioluminescence. Yeah, so it's like the highlight of this book, and so I knew about the bays, and I'd worked with people who did we have big contracts with Navy or Marines or one of the military, actually probably all of the military. We do some big contracts. And so we had a program in Puerto Rico, which I think this program, they go and they find old, like, unexploded devices, IEDs, I forget what their official name is. And they pull them up. They take them out of the environment. So some of them were duds, and that's why they didn't explode back during like military training or something. And some of them, I think none of them are probably live. We have people that are specialized that can go out and detect if they're live, if they're going to explode, and then safely remove them. So I think that's what our contractor there was doing. I'm not sure. We actually have an office in San Juan, so we do a lot of work in Puerto Rico. It's a local office, so I'm not sure exactly what they do. Chrissy had asked me if I was going to swing by the office when I was there, and I was like, go to the Bio Bay, swing by the office. But I actually had signed up to take a later flight out if they needed it, and I was thinking, this is great. I'll have like 14-hour delay. I can go to the office, meet the people there, talk about solutions and technology, and then catch a later flight out. But I ended up making my flight, so that didn't happen. Yeah, so I had just booked it randomly, needing to get out of town. I got out of town. Some of my field work in Oklahoma got pushed a week, so I extended it the next day. So I was there longer than I thought I was going to be. I actually extended it 2 days, and then flew straight into my other reservoir in South Texas. So yeah, I did not expect to be there during the start of Engineers Week, but I was, and I love Puerto Rico. So not only did I do the Bio Bay, I did these caves, which I'll have to make a little video for you guys because I got a lot of video. There was like one point where I'm standing up on, they've got this like castle and a fortress and walls around Old San Juan, and I like toured all of that in the morning, which is where I did my last chat with Andi from. And I kind of looked over the wall, and there's this like beautiful black rock beach, and I thought, I'm gonna go down there. And so I like followed this storm drain down, and I think there used to be like a little path down there probably before Hurricane Maria, because obviously there had been people there, and there were structures that looked, that there was remnants of structure, so there was something there at one point. And you can, like, if you walk far enough down the beach, get there, which is how I ended up coming back out, as I just walked all the way around the beach. But yeah, that was like a fun little adventure, which I have video from. And I put some stories in my Instagram in the highlights. If you go and look at the little highlights dot, you can see. The next day, I then went out and found some caves. They call them Cuevas del Indios. I don't know if there's actually Indian carvings, but that's what they call them. Actually, I highly doubt that they are from like actual native peoples. But yeah, there used to be, in Cueva del Indios, there used to be like a little ladder, and so if you go on TripAdvisor, everyone's like, this is so fun. Take the little ladder down, you can see the carvings, take the ladder back up, it's beautiful. I got there, and it was beautiful. There was no ladder. And there was this tour guide. It was Saturday, so there's like maybe a dozen of us there. The tour guide was like, there's not normally this many people here. This is one of my favorite places in Puerto Rico to go, and it was gorgeous. So we're all standing around looking down, like, oh yeah, that's where you used to be able to go down. And then the tour guide just like jumps, like uses some like rocks to jump up into this little hole. And he's like, that's how you get down there. Everybody's like, no way, you're joking. You can't go down there. He's like, well, when you're in Puerto Rico, you might as well try. And we're like, no way, he's joking. So about 5 of us went down there. We had to prop each other up into this hole. You like shimmy down this hole. And I kind of like crawl, but you're like crawling down this like rock crevice into the hole. Cat is sleeping. She's like, this is not interesting at all. You crawl down into this hole, you like drop down to the bottom, and I was like, I'm gonna need one of them to help get me back out because I'm not getting out this way. We like are in the bottom. It's super cool. We're like looking at the Indian carvings, taking pictures of each other. It was like 2 couples and me. And one of the couples went to go leave, and the other one was like, no, the tour guide said you have to get out through the other side. You have to boulder out. And one of the girls was like, I didn't think about getting out when I came down. I just thought I'm gonna get there, and then once I'm there, I'm gonna figure out how to get out, or I'm gonna die here. Like that was not like my brain is too much of an engineer's brain. Like I'm always thinking like, how do I get back out? Like what's my next 3 steps? So I just figured one of them was gonna have to help me get out the way I came in. But we ended up just like bouldering up the other side all the way out. The first couple did it. The girl on the second couple was like, I'm a little shorter than her, so I might just die here. I'm like, I'm shorter than you, so let me try it first. And I had made the mistake of like doing shoulder weights at the gym the night before. So my shoulders are aching as I was like pulling myself out of this little cave. But I made it. I made it to the top. And the other 2 came out, and everybody was safe. And when we got up, there was like a whole new group of people that had like come in. And none of them, someone was like, oh, hey, how do you get down there? And I was like, that hole up there. I was trying to say it in Spanish to them. Like, the hole behind you, on the wall. And they were just looking at me like, this must be your terrible Spanish, because there's no way you can get down there from this hole up in the wall. So that was my experience in the caves. And I went to another cave, Window Cave, which is a touristy thing, and I hung out with a family that was there, Annabelle and Jorge, and they had family in from like all over the U.S., and they were actually based in Puerto Rico, and they're so sweet. So I hung out with them. Let's see. After that, I went out to the Pacific side of Puerto Rico and went to a hostel, and I didn't stay there very long. I did, make some friends at the hostel. I went to the little farmer's market the next morning, and then I drove all the way back to the other side. So this is what happens when you don't plan a trip. It doesn't make sense the way you go to see things, and you don't get to spend nearly as much time as you would if you had planned it. So I was at the Pacific side, then I drove all the way around the south side of the island to the port to catch the ferry to go to VK's. And I spent a night in VK's, which was kind of cool. As I was like checking into the hostel, there's one hostel called Lazy Surf Hostel, and it's connected to a bar, Lazy Jack's, which is like on the strip. And so as I got there, I was like checking in. They're like, hey, we're gonna go jump off the pier at sunset. If you're wearing a swimsuit in 10 minutes, come with us, or you can just skinny dip if you wanted. I was like, I'll put on my swimsuit. I'll be back here in 10. So then I just like dropped off my stuff and went to go jump off the pier with them. And the guy who was like showing me around the hostel, I just stopped and went like, how do I know you? And he was like, well, I'm a hypnotherapist, and I believe that when you think you know somebody, it's because you do know them from a past life. And so I heard all about how we apparently know each other from past lives. Then it occurred to me later when he was talking about Spain that it's because he looks exactly like my Spanish teacher that I had in Austin, which I showed him a picture of my Spanish teacher, and he was just like, this guy is very attractive. And he was tickled that I thought he looked like my Spanish teacher. So I jumped off the pier with them. We snuck up so there's like one 5-story building in VK's. And apparently they kept getting kicked out of this building because there's a rooftop bar area with a pool. And they were like, well, there's a party there tonight, so if there's any night that we can sneak back up to this building, it's tonight. So like as we were like soaking wet from jumping off the pier, which I like lost my contact as I jumped in the water. My contact was falling out and I caught it and I just like stuck it back in my eyeball. So like my eyes bright red were like soaked in water, and we just like take the elevator up to the top of this building, and there's a DJ and everybody's like so drunk, and none of us were like caring to drink at all. But it was very cute. They had like these little they looked like floating swans or flamingos that you put your cup in, and they would just float around the pool on the top. And I wish I'd grabbed some pictures. I kept thinking, oh, I'll come back when the sun's out a little bit more and take some pictures. But it was so beautiful, just like being on this pool, on the top of this hotel, like looking out of the Caribbean, and it was gorgeous. So we all sat in the pool and talked about our past lives and conspiracy theories. Conscious conversations. So after that, I think I just went back. Oh, I went back and I did my Bio Bay tour, which we like you kayak out into. They can only have so many people in the bay a day, which it's off season, so that didn't really matter so much when I was there. It was a full moon. They say to go out in the new moon, which is something if I'd planned the trip, I would have planned better. But actually, in the full moon, it was great because we like kayaked out. You could kind of see that the water glittered a little bit when your like paddles hit it as you're kayaking. And we got out to the middle and we strapped all of our kayaks together. And the tour guide, he was one of the only tour guides that did this, but he like had this big cover and we covered ourselves in this like plastic sheet, this tarp. And underneath the tarp, you could see, it's probably what you can see if you're there on a full moon. There's just like millions of little pinpricks of light everywhere, and you can like pull them up in your hand and they like jump around, and it's out of this world. And so you look down and then there's like something glowing on your leg. It's like lightning bugs, but just millions of them, and they're tiny little pinpricks. And you can kind of see them, like they're all glass bottom kayak boats, so you can kind of see them under the boat, just like going by, like millions of them going by as you're paddling. But like under the cover, they're just like playing around with all these lights that are just like moving around, and it was amazing. And occasionally you'd see like a fish swim by, and you could just the whole thing lights up when because they light up whenever they get moved or jostled, which is why they light up in the kayaks. And when the fish go by, you just see this like light streak as they go. You can see the whole fish. It's awesome. So we like pulled the cover off, and I was looking around thinking this world looks so different than the world looked before I was under this tarp. It was so great. And then we're like, kayaking over the mangroves to see them. This ray went by, so it's just like this burst of light. You can like see its little fins go by. It was so cool. Yeah, the tour guide's like pointing out constellations. It was kind of cloudy and he was having a hard time finding them. So I think he just started like naming things he knew should have been up there. But I took an astronomy class when I was in high school, and so like I knew them like well enough to know that he was not pointing out the right stars. But he had so much enthusiasm about it. I was like, I don't know if this guy thinks he's pointing out to the right stars, or if he's just trying to like say something because he's the tour guide and he wants to be able to say something for us to be like, oh yeah, that's serious. But it definitely wasn't serious that he was pointing at. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Puerto Rico was fun. And then I ended up, coming back from VKs and catching my flight out. It was Engineers Week, and so I went to the reservoir for a ribbon cutting, which was kind of cool, except for they like never intended to have a ribbon there for the ribbon cutting, which I thought was a missed opportunity. Also, why call it a ribbon cutting if you're not gonna have a ribbon? Everyone kept asking me if we were gonna have like giant scissors to do the ribbon cutting. I was like, no, we don't have a ribbon. So it was basically an opening ceremony without the ribbon, but it was also like, it was very cool. It was cool to be there. It was cool to see my client, and the guy who used to be our client, who's now on a different project, came back, and he was just loving it. He knew everybody there. He was telling people about, the reservoir's a third full, and this is what it's going to be like when it's full, and this is how we're going to operate it, and da-da-da-da. And it was like really cool to see him just like navigate that space. And I was awarded New Face of Civil Engineering, which I think is a promotional thing for ASCE, but I get to do some cool stuff with it. And I was awarded that the week before, which I think I talked about in my last video. So I got to site, and like everyone's on site, so my PM came, and then the other regional exec, he's a regional exec, and then the guy one above him came, and so everybody's on site. And one of my young engineers had been in Houston on Monday night and went by a vegan bakery and got this huge like vegan cinnamon roll. And so like we were having lunch and they brought out the cinnamon roll and they were like, congratulations for making New Face. And so I like took a picture with everybody. It was very adorable. And also we then spent the rest of the day just talking about how vegan cinnamon rolls taste like regular cinnamon rolls. um, yeah, I was thinking this, like the icing on top, the cream cheese icing is probably Pillsbury, because the Pillsbury cream cheese is definitely vegan. It's just like so fake that it's vegan. So we had cinnamon roll. We did the opening ceremony without a ribbon or cutting of a ribbon. And then on Thursday was like introduce a girl to engineering. And so I took over the Jacob's Instagram. So I did a bunch of video like answering questions for people, and they uploaded them to the Jacob's Instagram. And so I might upload them to my YouTube so that you can see what I had said. Because I don't know if they're anywhere else that you could see. I'm not sure if they saved the Instagram stories or not. But yeah, so I did that on Thursday. That was the only introduce a girl to engineering thing that I did. And then I worked on a couple of my other projects Friday. I got a lot of stuff done. I did revisions on that storage curve TM I've talked about before. I did some more design on the ASR well, which I've talked about before. More stuff on just startup and commissioning of the reservoir, which I think I've also talked about before. So I'm just doing some of the same things over and over again, as far as it goes in my work life. And then this past week, I was at a different dam. We started doing some drilling. It was cold, so they didn't get very far. They're saying their hydraulic lines froze, which I don't think is a thing in this type of temperatures. Like colder, yes, but we weren't cold enough. And what I've seen in really cold temperatures is they just leave the rig running all night so that nothing freezes up, so you don't have to winterize it. Because it would take a couple hours to winterize it and then unwinterize it every single day, so they just leave it running all night. But they weren't winterizing it or leaving it running, and I don't think it was cold enough for that. I don't think it was cold enough for that, but for whatever reason they couldn't. Things were freezing on them and they looked miserable. I was like on conference calls in my car and thinking like, they're just trying to get out of it because it's cold, and I totally understand that. But also we need them to keep going because we're all sitting here on the budget and we need to get some core samples. But yeah, we're pulling rock cores, and then we'll be testing the cores in the lab. We're doing like the geology on the cores. We're sending them off to the lab to test. We'll be doing a televiewer, downhole televiewer, so it's like putting a little camera into the hole and like looking around and seeing the porosity and stuff. We'll be doing packer testing, so you put in these big like inflatable packers, you inflate them and you seal off different portions of the borehole, and then you pressure test the portion that you haven't sealed off. That's packer testing. We're going to be doing some other like permeability tests in the hole. We did SPT tests, so you put like a sampler, a little split spoon sampler in, which is just like a metal tube you can break it open. So you put this tube in there, it like crunches down into the soil formation because it's got like an open end on the bottom, and on the top you hammer it. So you do as many hammers to get a 1.5 foot. So every 6 inches you say, okay, it took 7 blows from the hammer to get 6 inches down. It took 5 blows to get 6 inches down. It took 7 blows to get 6 inches. And so once you're 1.5 foot down, you can pull out the sample, break it open, and you can see like, okay, here's the whole sample, and it took 767 or whatever it was to do all the blows. And so we actually studied that in for my, in my geotech class when I was an undergrad, and then I needed to know it again for my professional engineering exam. So that's an SPT test. I took some videos of it, so I can upload those and share with you if you're interested. And yeah, maybe I'll do some videos today. It is Saturday, and most people I know probably aren't awake yet. This one's not awake yet. She's so cute. So I'm just gonna hang out and I've been working on my resume for an international internship position through my company, so I'll talk about that next week, I guess. But I've been working on that, and yeah, it's gonna be a good weekend. So So I'm happy you guys joined me today, and I will see y'all next week.